it takes place in restaurants, but it doesn't have anything to do with chefs, doesn't have anything to do with food. It doesn't have anything to do with a chef's point of view. You know, it's about the everyday life of your fisherman friend, of your boy Sonny. You know, like the shit that he does that pulls at his heartstrings, the stuff that he does when no one's looking. You know what I mean? Because there's a million stories that are like that, of your porter, of your server, of the girl who's pregnant and working because she has to, who's sending money back home to her home country. You know, like all these stories, but all the while, all of us proudly holding that restaurant up, because that's what we do.
An entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
So, chef, we went to the same culinary school. Pretty excited to see that. You don't see the French Culinary Institute much these days.
Right.
It changed its name to
like 25 times, right?
to now I think it's like the International Culinary Center. Is that what it is?
Something like that.
ICC.
Yeah, it went from like that to Peter Kump's to all kinds of.
When did you go to FCI?
92.
Okay, so you were there before I was.
Yeah.
I loved that school. It was such a grind. It was such a hustle, and some of the chefs there were they took it very seriously, especially cooking in the restaurant. Did they have the restaurant when you were there, like Cole?
That was I think the second or third year.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it was just kicking off.
It was, I mean, man,
Right.
That whole experience was great. I got lucky that when I went there, Cornell had partnered with FCI and brought a lot of Cornell professors from their hospitality management program to offer a hospitality management, sort of restaurant management program. And so I was able to also hop into that.
Okay.
So that exposure was great.
Right.
But before the cameras were rolling, we were just talking about the world of restaurants and where restaurants are now in New York. And I'm sure, you know, it vibrates out of New York as well. But New York is a hotbed for restaurants. I think there's 24,000 restaurants in New York City.
Something like that, yeah.
And something like 1,000 restaurants open or close a month in New York. And that is just a staggering number, right? Like,
right.
People say that the restaurant business is the hardest business. And I've spent my majority of my life and career in that business. I think you have too. So what do you think has changed since the pandemic? Because I think the pandemic has made that just really shook the ground.
I think a lot has changed, but also during that time there were a ton of fronts going on at the same time, you know, and I'll explain that. Is that a lot of people talked a good game when they were talking about, you know what, we're going to change up our ways, we're going to switch it up, we're going to, you know, think more about our employees and treat them better and this and that. But, you know, I was still on the ground, you know, during all that time in restaurants, in ghost kitchens and stuff like that. And I would still visit friends, you know, I would still reach out to them. And, you know, a lot of restaurants, I think, really wanted to change, but probably didn't know how. You know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit, you know. A lot of the people still were, you know, getting messed with, you know, as far as the racism, the sexism, their pay rate, you know, the amount of time that they were there, the amount of pressure that was going on. I think that the changes came really once we started kind of getting back into it, because there was that break, you know, and then there was that staggering, okay, now I'm going to try to walk this new walk that no one has ever done before in restaurants, at least in my time. And I've been doing it for 38 years. And I think it got to the point where they were just kind of like, you know what, fuck this. You know, I'm not going to work for less. I'm not going to have someone treat me this way or put me in this box or whatever. And I think that the real change started happening individually. I think since then I've seen a lot more chefs become sober. I've seen a lot more chefs really put their mental health first, but that necessarily wasn't done by a restaurant group. I think that was done by boots to the ground individuals who just had enough, and needed to make change. Now, I was talking to you about the parts of the industry that people love, because just like you, I walked away from it twice. Probably the first time about 22 years ago when my daughter was born, and I took some time off and I worked in a cheese shop for a year, and all the clientele and chef friends and stuff would come in and we would catch up and they would talk about things that were happening that day or last night, and the energy sucked me back in. Like I couldn't be on the bench, like I needed to be a part of that. But now with my new information about cheese and my knowledge about all that, now I felt a bit stronger, almost like the Highlander when he kills someone and he sucks in all that power. I was like the cheese Highlander almost. But now, like I did it again, probably around COVID. But then I was able to dissect the parts that I love, First and foremost, it's the art of it. I always say cooking is where I lose myself and find myself all over again. It's within those walls, within that circuit is where I'm able to express emotion and love and feeling and all that through the platform of food, either through the storytelling or the ingredient, maybe a taste or two, but you can kind of see the energy on the plate with the colors and the origin of that grain or that rice or the story about that seafood or where I got that, pink blueberry from, like all of that sort of has its place in there. So the artistry, first and foremost, the camaraderie when it's right. I think in 38 years of working in food, maybe I have 10 ride or die good friends that I would drop everything for, and just wherever you need me to prep with you, you need me to come and watch your kids, you need me to help you move, pick up a couch, like those individuals, those guys who were with you when you weren't shit, and saw you on the rise, or vice versa. Those people that never let what it is that we do get in the way of our friendship. Even with all the success that I've had, I have close friends who don't give a shit. Like to me, to them, I'm still Chris from Coatesville.
I got to stop you there for 1 second, because I had this thought, and I wrote a note actually in my phone today. I'm born and raised in Manhattan. Spent my whole life here, for the most part, outside of the last 5 years, where we now live in upstate New York. But I've never, ever stopped wearing a backpack and taking the train. Never. I always wear a backpack.
Right.
And I always take the train.
Right.
And I had this thought today that I was like, damn, man, like not much has changed in my means of transportation since 12 years old or whatever it's been since I started taking the train.
Right.
And I wrote in my note, I was just like, you're never too good for shit, And I think that mentality, specifically coming from working in restaurants as a technician,
right?
Like, if you are passionate about that world, it is ingrained in you that if you are walking by a station in the kitchen and you see a piece of broccoli that hit the floor, grab that piece of broccoli, man.
1, 2, 3.
Grab it, man.
Right, like it's nothing.
That, like, you're not too good to grab, like, why,
nothing.
grab the
Right,
broccoli.
right.
You're walking through the dining room and you see a table filled with plates that need to get removed, and you see a busboy full to the max, you walk over and you grab the plates.
Right.
you grab the plates.
Of course.
And I think it's the same thing with wearing the backpack and riding the train. It's like we're taught that skill in the world of restaurants that, you know, like playing on a team and never, you know, I'm not, and you know as well as I do, not everybody is this way, right? But I do believe that the real ones are that way. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that has been such a gift mm-hmm. to be able to walk through life with now as a father, mm-hmm. you know, as a husband,
right.
and also as a business owner in another arena for me.
Right.
I'm always going to pick up the broccoli.
Absolutely.
You know, like you know, and
right.
so I just felt, I feel like that, like as you were saying that, you know, you are Chris and you've had a lot of success, TV, restaurants, all of it. But at the end of the day, you've been able to keep this I am Chris energy.
Right.
The guy that was cooking 21 years ago is the same guy that is out there today.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, don't sleep. I mean, there are times, and I think it happens to a lot of young chefs when we go through, I like to call it the Hollywood syndrome, you know, where you think it's more about you than about what you're putting on the plate. You know, I mean, we all go through that, you know, and there's this one part about being on TV and, you know, finally sort of having that platform, you know, like I was talking about how it's an art. Mm-hmm. And I think like with any kind of artistry, you know, that we want our stuff to be out there. It's like Erykah Badu said it a long time ago. She said, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit, you know, and that's the truth, you know. So with that art in place, I think that I'm able to really build a foundation of everything else, you know, and it grows organically, you know, like the way that I even approach that broccoli. Now I try to teach that to other people, you know. I mean, the one thing that I'm learning sort of now that I'm, you know, almost 40 years in is a lot of that work ethic is sort of self-taught, you know. Like you can't really, like you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't really get them to kind of pay attention to the things that you pay attention to, you know.
Well, the one thing in the restaurant business that I know to be true is it is 100% a sink or swim environment, right? Like if you are not seeing what other people are doing and following suit,
right,
you are going to be removed.
Right, get down or lay down.
Right, it's like it's one of those things, right? Because there's not that many places in life where, you know, there's a 3 hour to 4 hour, if you're lucky, period of time where it is potentially 95 degrees, weapons everywhere, nonstop action and activity, multiple different personalities.
100%.
And you're forced to perform in that environment. Right. Hot, dangerously loaded with weapons.
Right.
A lot of different personalities and a lot of people that end up working in restaurants end up there as opposed to seek it out.
Sure.
You know, like I worked at a restaurant in Soho when I was like 19 years old, and a prep cook stabbed another cook.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I've never seen anything wild. I mean, I've seen fights, but no one ever picked up, you know, a knife. The wildest thing I ever saw, there was a portable deep fryer on the table, sort of like a makeshift, and this dude was carrying all his shit in a bus tub. And the bus tub, of course, was cracked or whatever. And he's walking and he's trying to catch himself, and he's contorting his body to kind of not let his shit fall. And while he's doing it, he's close to the edge of the table where the fryer is. Oh, man. He catches onto that, and the fryer oil hits him from the waist down. All that. I mean, the yell that I heard was like I can still hear it to this day. I've never seen that brother ever again in any kitchen. This was back in Philly, smaller circuit, and back in Philly, you would work with the same cats 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. You know, never saw this dude ever again. You know, I'm sure he was like, you know what, fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have been involved in, you know, situations in restaurants. I mean, like, people watch The Bear, right? And that show is fascinating for people.
Of course,
massive hit, right?
I get it, yeah.
And it's a massive hit because the intensity of working in, and for, let alone opening a restaurant, but the intensity of working in a restaurant is hot. It's just hot.
Do you watch The Bear?
I have not watched The Bear. I've watched a few episodes of The Bear.
Right.
But it's kind of, you know, people are like, what do you mean you haven't watched The Bear?
Right.
I'm like, honestly, I've lived The Bear.
I live it, right.
So, you know, it's not, it's a, there are a lot of, like, when I opened up my third restaurant in Williamsburg, Meatball Shop, we had,
Great spot, by the way.
thank you, man,
Yeah.
friend and family night, packed to the gills. 300 people showed up for this thing. And mid-service, things were going pretty well because we kind of had our flow. We had the restaurant on the Lower East Side for at least a year. We had just opened up the restaurant in the Westville, so that opening went well. And so we felt good about how things were moving out of the kitchen. All of a sudden, I hear a scream from the prep kitchen downstairs.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, damn. Like, and it wasn't just like it was a,
Like I'm hurt, kind of.
yeah, it was just like a, oh my God scream.
Oh, wow.
And the 4-inch drain pipe, and if you come from the world of restaurants, you know what a 4-inch pipe is. There's only one thing that comes through a 4-inch pipe, and that is shit, friends.
Oh, man.
And typically when you're in the basement or the ground floor of a building, that 4-inch pipe is the same 4-inch pipe that is used for all the apartments upstairs.
Oh,
So that 4-inch pipe burst,
oh.
and there was shit
On them.
everywhere.
On the food and everything.
Everywhere.
Oh, my God.
Everywhere. And luckily, the 4-inch pipe was low. So the majority of the cleanup was on the floor.
Kind of contained a little bit.
But when I'm telling you, by the time I got down there was about 1.5 to 2 inches of shit everywhere.
It was still coming?
It was coming out of the pipe.
Wow.
And obviously we had to shut down service. And
Yeah.
So like that scene where like the toilet explodes. There's a scene where the toilet explodes in one of the restaurants. I was like, yep, I know that feeling,
Yeah.
man. You know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
do you watch The Bear?
I've never not watched 1 second of it. People are also shocked. See, but here's my thing with it. Now, The Bear came up, I think it came out right around when COVID
Yep.
also came out. So here's this whole scenario, and I look at, I pay attention to people. Like, I'm a watcher. I watch how you talk, I watch how you walk, I watch the body language, shit coming out of your mouth, things that are going through your head, the whole nine. So The Bear comes out in the midst of the change of restaurant business is brutal. There's drug abuse, there's sexism, there's racism. We need to change our stuff. Food and Wine magazine brings in all new people. Eater brings in all new people. Now you see more diversity, like we're on our way. Then here comes The Bear. And now everything that we hated and we want to change, now on the TV screen, like, oh my God, I love it. Like, yo, make up your fucking mind. You know what I mean?
I never thought about it that way.
You know, it's like everything that you're trying to move away from and make changes about, you know, you're like putting up on a pedestal. And don't get me wrong, it's The Bear is true to form. It is what you see on the TV, and sometimes even worse.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like it baffled me. You know, like, what do you really want? What is it that we are seeking as individuals? Are we really trying to move away from this? Because I would look to people of color, and we were sort of like just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, like, this can't be real. You know, like, really, you're going to give me what I'm asking for finally? You know, like, that's not real. And then after that, because like, for quite a time, I mean, I have colleagues that got legit good jobs and still have them during COVID when this changeover was happening. They needed to change the view of the Food Network. They needed to put faces that represented more diversity. Some of them cats still got jobs. Not knocking that at all, you know. But it came to a point where all of a sudden we weren't getting the jobs. And I was actually sitting down with a producer one time, and he's like, yeah, you know, it's not really the same anymore. Like, we're not really looking towards that demographic of people. Like, we've moved on as you knew we would.
Wow.
You know? And that's sort of like, you know, that's when the other shoe dropped. Now we're kind of back to normal, you know? So, like, the whole thing about the bear, and I get it, art imitates life, imitates art, you know? But, yeah, man, that's my bear story.
You know, I think that it's really interesting. There's so many different aspects of what I miss in the world of restaurants. I am inherently a people dude. You put me on the corner of the worst block in Watts, and you put me at the White House, and I am going to walk away with friends. That is just who I am.
Of course.
I was born.
That's our nature. That's our nature.
Totally.
I was telling some guy the other day, and it was after we closed up shop. I was doing an event last night, and we're breaking down whatever, and normally, like, they'll put out any extra food on sheet trays and leave it out for staff, the dish guys, whoever. But I'm plating it up for him, you know. And the guy comes over, he's like, no, you don't have to do all that. Like, nah, I have to, you know, because this is for you, you know, and you're the backbone of this event. Like, I wouldn't be able to do this without you washing the dishes, lugging all that shit up from the 8th floor, you know. Like, this happened because you were here with me, and you deserve to eat just like them motherfuckers outside, you know. So I'm going to hook you up.
You know, you say that, and all I can remember and think about is, you know, at every restaurant I've ever opened, we never made family meal and sheet trays. We just didn't. I always let people just order an item off the menu.
Okay.
And that was a big expense, obviously, right? But for me, being a guy who worked in restaurants for so many years before I opened my own,
Yep.
I was you know, at night I'd be eating out of a tin. And I'm like, man, we spent so much energy making this experience so awesome for the guests that walk through the door.
Right.
At the end of the night, I'm given a plastic spoon.
Right.
I can't even. You don't even have forks on the damn table.
You're eating it with your fingers sometimes.
I'm taking a big scoop of some lasagna that you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, it's interesting how that dynamic and that dichotomy is, right? Like, but I will say, you know, there's something about getting through a service in a restaurant that just kicked your fucking ass. That you can't I mean, maybe, you know, maybe it's like playing a really hard game. But typically a football game, a basketball game, any kind of game that where it's going to kick your ass is like an hour.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Some of these services, and for people that have never worked in a restaurant, in a busy restaurant specifically, you know, this thing can start at 6:30 and not end until midnight.
Right.
Where you are just balls to the wall and you are grinding, whether you're in the back, whether you're in the front, you are just nonstop heads down, and and mistakes are made.
Sure.
And you got to work through them on the fly. It's not like you have time to just figure out how to like make up for your mistake. You are just continuing to step forward, right?
You got to be able to pivot now.
Right now.
Right now.
There's no one dish comes out of the kitchen and you just plated all the other dishes. One dish comes out, somebody's sitting at that table, they don't get what they want. That person is now sitting there while there are other people at the table are eating. Mm-hmm. So you got to figure out a way to get that food out of the kitchen in when it normally would take with tickets on the board 15 minutes to get something out.
Now you got 2.
You got about a minute and a half,
right,
to make that person happy.
Absolutely.
Because the other thing in the restaurant business is, and now more so than ever before, everything that comes off the line over the pass is now a photo shoot. It is being photographed and publicized every time. Mm-hmm. We used to be prepared for that shit.
Right.
They'd be like, yeah, New York Magazine's coming in to take image, to shoot your shit.
Sure.
Now, every single person that has a cell phone in New York City that is interested in food is Pete Wells, and taking a picture of it and sharing what their thoughts are, right? And so it's so easy, so much easier to fail than it is to really succeed.
Yeah. I mean, the one, at least back in my time, and I'm talking like mid-90s, everything was about like flavor and precision and knowing your timing, and in the heat of the battle, like not forgetting the fundamental steps. One of my mentors, his name is Al Paris. He's probably pushing 70 now. He's back in Philly. Sweet guy. And when I was young, he taught me the love of the game. Of course, about like how to braise, how to sear, how to do this or that. But he always told you the why, And he was like this spiritual, hippy-dippy guy, but who was also down with jazz and the brand new heavies. And he was the chef back in his time. He was the chef of the Mondavi Vineyard out in San Fran. So he's cooking for like Art Blakey and cats like that, and pretty much lived a full life, and then comes back home to Philly where he meets a young version of me, and it was all about like know your fundamentals and feed the people with love, and but there was two stories with him. Is that it's a busy night. The guy on saute is doing fish. The guy on grill is doing meat. I'm in the middle with sauces and veg. And the dudes would pass me the plates, or they would pass me the proteins. I would put on the plate, hook up the veg, put it in the window. Chef would check it, and it would go out. So I'm doing that, and it's busy as fuck. And he takes the plate, and he's like a loud, short Italian guy. And he takes the fucking plate, and he slams it on the ground. Right away, dishwashers come, they're cleaning it up. He bangs his hand on the table, give me 2 more, right? Do it again, takes the plate again, slams it again.
Wow.
At this point, the dude on saute is looking at me like, yo, whatever the fuck you're doing wrong, get it right. Because I don't have much fish left in my drawer, so get it together, bro,
And how old are you now?
I don't know, like 24, 25, And so like now I'm shook. Like, all right. The guy to my left is mad at me. Chef is pissed at me. Let me do this again and put it up. And as I'm putting it up, chef bangs his hand in the window and comes close. And he's like, yo, you haven't tasted shit. You haven't seasoned nothing. Your sauces are broken. And you're just giving it to me because I'm screaming. You need to pay attention no matter how busy we get. And back then, it wasn't about like the look or whatever. He wanted his shit right. And more than that, he wanted me to know that what I was doing was wrong. It wasn't just the act of slinging it out. It was like, no matter how fucking busy we are, dude.
Taste your food.
Taste your food. Pay attention. If it's broken, fix it now. If you need more veg, you got a prep dude over there scream for it or run off the line real quick and do something, but don't have my shit fucked up. Like that was Al, and to this day, man, I'm grateful for everything that he's taught me, and mostly about the love and the why and the romance of why we do what we do. And that's honestly what keeps me driven. And the older I get, the more that I focus in on that. Another story. So he wasn't big on like events. You know, he wanted to come to work. He wanted to do good food. He wanted the people in the neighborhood to know that this spot was the shit. And then he would go home to his wife and kids. You know, he wasn't about like being in the magazines and all that. He wasn't about all that public facing shit. But I was, the Hollywood syndrome. Mm. So I would say, chef, let me do the events that they're inviting you to. He would say, okay, cool. And I was just a line cook. And I would go to these events, like a Baldor produce competition or whatever. And I would go there and battle executive chefs in Philly. And sometimes I would win. So I would come back flexing, like, oh, you can't stop me, I'm the man, fuck you. Look at my medals, you know, like talking shit. And one day Al saw me and he's like, oh man, congratulations. Oh man, you did a really great job. Cool. So listen, here's the special for tonight. I need you to go change your clothes, come back up, and then bang out a Bernays, this, and this. I'm like, yeah, chef, no problem. I go downstairs, I come back up, he sees me like maybe an hour later. He's like, yo, you got that Bernays? I want to taste it. And I said, nah, chef, I don't. And then and he's loud. Right then and there, he got fucking beat red in my face, and he goes, because you don't fucking know how. Everything stops. You don't know how. You want to walk around thinking that you're the shit. You want to walk around bragging. You want to walk around like you're fucking Big Dick Johnson, you know, oh, I won this, I won that. And you can't even do the fundamentals. You can't even make me a fucking hollandaise sauce. You know what I mean? And you think that you're the shit?
Not an easy sauce to make, by the way.
Not, but it is one of the fundamentals.
Yeah, 100%. You know? 100%.
So he was on me, like basically, do you grow within these parameters that I keep you in, but within here, know your shit, you know? And that's sort of how I train my cooks now. Like I always tell a story. Do you really think Phil Jackson taught Jordan anything about basketball? He didn't, probably. What he did let him do, he let him exist within these four walls, you know? Get down. You want to score fucking 20 to 40 a night? Go ahead. You want to fucking slam dunk? You want to have competitions with guys on your team? Cool. But you know what you're not going to do? You're not going to fucking gamble to where it fucks with my practice or the team, and you're not going to beat up my players. You're not going to go to practice and fucking punch Steve Kerr in the face and all that. You know what I mean? So that's the boundaries. I'll pull you in. Do your 40 a night. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. Do a Nike commercial. I don't give a fuck. But you get too close to the guardrail, I'm going to pull your card.
There was a book that I read, this guy, Tim Grover, who coached Jordan, Kobe, and Dwayne Wade.
Oh, wow.
He was their like mental coach and worked with them on fitness too, but he really was like their sort of like their mental health guy. And he wrote this book called Relentless. You got to read this book because it talks about, he shares about how crazy those guys were.
I'm sure.
Just relentless, like, you know, and you're right. Jordan got checked a lot because of his intensity and ego, you know.
I think about it all the time. I'm sure you saw that documentary on Netflix. I guess it was about their 3 seasons when they did the three-peat.
Oh, God, yeah.
And they were about to go to
the Last Dance.
Yeah. And they were about to go to the playoffs. And fucking Dennis Rodman's like, yo, I need some time off. Like, who the fuck asks for time off when you're about to go into the playoffs? Mm-hmm. You know? But Jackson was like, all right, take a couple days and then come back. But when you come back, be on. And he came back and was the shit. I think that's just like you were talking about how there's so many different personalities. That's how you manage that. You know, like he knew that would probably cause a riff on the team. Like, oh, how come he gets special treatment? How come he gets to go to Vegas? You know what I mean? But some people need that.
I have a good story. 2 or 3 years after, probably 3 years after we opened the meatball shop, you were in the city then. Like, the meatball shop kind of took off. Like,
it blew up.
It was nuts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was so hard for me, even though I was working 18 hours a day, straight up. 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, probably for 3 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
It just was, it was a nonstop thing. I remember, when you're successful in our business, everybody wants a piece. Everybody wants to, people throw money at you. Let's do this, let's do that, blah, blah, blah. What's the next thing, this and that. So I remember, we had raised some money, and we were sitting in a board meeting. I never thought I'd be in a board meeting. Board meeting, I'm like, yo, man, I'm a kitchen restaurant dude. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Board meeting, I just didn't know my ass from my elbow.
Yeah. So
I'm feeling flexy. The restaurants are crushing. We cook meatballs on Jay Leno, Jimmy Fallon, Chelsea Handler, Good Morning America, like all this shit. And we're in this board meeting, and it's me, my partner Dan, this guy that we had brought on who's a legend in the restaurant business, older guy, founder of Ruby Tuesdays. He came in with money for a meatball shop, and some managers, executive team or whatever. And I didn't know it, but I was vocal. I was probably talking out of my ass, right? Chances are. I'm 29, 30 years old, thinking my shit doesn't stink.
of course.
And so after the meeting, where I feel like I performed really well, Sandy, older guy, he goes, hey, can I take you out for a cup of coffee? I'm like, absolutely. I'm thinking we're going to sit down. He's going to be like, man, I'm proud of you, dude. I'm proud of you, young blood. I'm thinking that this dude is going to just like pat me on the back.
Sure.
He sits down with me and he goes, can I be frank with you? And I was like, absolutely. He goes, do me a favor. Next time we have one of those meetings, shut the fuck up. And I'm like,
Right.
like white as a ghost.
Right,
I'm
you're
like,
stunned.
I'm like,
You're stunned.
what? Scared to death. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, you talk way too fucking much. And every time you open your mouth, you put your foot in your ass. You put your foot in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, just shut up and listen, dude.
Right.
You are a talented kid. You don't need to be heard. You need to listen.
Right.
Because the only way you are going to get to where I am is by observing and listening. And sometimes we need to be right-sized, right? And that was an experience for me, just like you had an experience with your chef,
Right.
where this dude just like had really, and by the way, this guy is a legend, and I'm grateful for him, and he is a mentor. But that one piece of advice, that moment was monumental for me in my life.
It stayed with you to
Dude,
the core.
Every time I'm talking
Yep.
in a business environment, I hear his words say, shut the fuck up.
Yep.
And I'm like, do I need to be like, and I apply it to other areas in my life, where like sitting at the dinner table with my wife, she's telling me about something, it bothers me. I have the option to tell her actually the first thought that came to mind and express that, or be like, yo, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yep.
You don't need to go ahead and do that.
Right. Exactly.
Like, this is an opportunity for you to just have reverence, Like,
You've been married for a long time?
20 years.
Yeah. I'm going on 12 years. But I mean that's how you do it, in marriage and in life. You choose those battles. I think that we have enough experience and wisdom in our belt, that we speak when we need to. Like if something needs to be said, or someone needs to hear something in particular, then we speak on it. I mean, even now, You know, like I'll be in meetings just like that, you know, and still feel some kind of way about being there, you know, like dude, why am I even here? You know, it's sort of like dealing with like the after effects of like imposter syndrome or whatever, you know, but yeah, man, like I learned so much from observing, from watching how they play. Like I said, I'm a watcher, you know. I even watch how they fuck with each other, you know, like who's playing who here, you know. I'm the spectator sitting in this fucking Fortune 500 room with all these fucking suit and tie motherfuckers, you know, watching y'all game each other, you know, and I'm picking up all the subtleties that I can carry back into my world, you know, and try to master it there.
So I worked in this restaurant in the East Village for 8.5 years before I opened up Meatball Shop. I got hired there when I was 20. I got sober there. Frank gave me a second chance.
Nice.
He was the catalyst to changing my life. I mean, he personally didn't change my life, but when he told me you're fired unless you get sober, that was the first time I heard that word in an echo chamber, and that job was everything to me.
That was your rock bottom?
That was my bottom. August 2nd, 2004. And he, you know, he said, look, dude, you can't have your job back as you know it, but you can come here at 8 o'clock in the morning and clean with the porters, and I'll pay you hourly.
Yeah.
You got to get sober.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And he gave me my job back pretty quickly because I haven't had a drink since that day. And I was down deep, you know, overdosing on heroin like bad. I mean, it was bad. You know, our business is a hotbed for substance abuse. It just
and it's
is.
all free. That's the craziest shit of all, is that it's fucking free.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no. So, but I worked for this guy for 8.5 years, and I worked 5 years sober, 5.5 years sober in that restaurant, and he ran that place like, I don't know if anybody can do it, but the way he ran and continues to run, they're still open. Frank, Little Frankie's Supper, now Daddy's Pizza. He's got a few others that are opening up. He's got restaurants now in Italy. He let the staff run the restaurants.
Wow.
And that is why I was able to work there for as long as I did, because I was essentially a intrapreneur is the term, I think, right? Where like you kill what you eat.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that there. And that's what I like about being an entrepreneur is, man, yes, all the weight is on my back, but when we kill it, we eat it. You know, and I love that about the hunt of being an entrepreneur. But if I was to go back to the world of restaurants, I don't think that I would come to the table with all these SOPs and, you know, everybody, you know, like I know that the times have changed. Everybody's got to sign in for their breaks, and hours have got to be checked it's got to be done right.
Yep.
But everybody that I worked with in that restaurant, small restaurant, maybe 40 seats plus a bar, everybody worked there for decades. There are still people that were hired there before me and are still there now.
Yeah.
Years and years, and they love their job. And the reason why is because there was actually one instance where there was some racism in there, for sure, that I was very well exposed to, but it was in a different way. It was the South American guys just hating on the white dudes, you know, and so there was that dynamic that was just like, it was a weird thing there, but it didn't last that long. But there's something about the pressure that you have to endure working in a restaurant, especially a busy one, is intense. when there's added weight and added pressure from these managers that walk around and are always looking over your shoulder and, checking you out every night and making
politics.
asking you about your wine sales and this and that, like, it doesn't make you inspired to want to go out there and crush it.
No.
It's already a pressure intense zone. So give the freedom and support the team. I think one thing that gets twisted in the world of restaurants is the support, like management,
Right.
actually add a level of pressure and fear on top of the intensity that most people don't appreciate. They don't want somebody up their fucking ass.
Yeah, that micromanagement bullshit is whack, But that's just what I was saying to you in the beginning. Like, people talk a good game when they were talking about, we're gonna get rid of these old school ways and the methods, and we're gonna promote freedom and inspiration. No, you're not. You're not.
Right.
Especially
for the bigger establishments.
Right. And I think that those bigger establishments have more deeper pockets to get people up in there to where you can build that kind of culture that they want. Like, you don't have to be up someone's ass because X amount of bottles of wine weren't sold, or one guy is getting in trouble because he was doing some deep cleaning and now he's being penalized for working at 2 hours more. Like, dude, he's doing it for you, because he has pride in his station, his work, this place. But none of it is his. The other really, so I think also, like, as we're talking about just sort of the difficulties of restaurants, right? Like, I kind of describe it to people this way. This is what makes restaurants different than most every other business, specifically a retail business, because the restaurant is a retail business, right? You walk into a clothing store, J. Crew, right? You walk into J. Crew, you're like, all right, I need a pair of pants. I'm going to spend, what, $80, Yep.
$90?
Yep.
So that's your check, right? The check is somebody walks through the door, guaranteed probably check at a J. Crew is like $120. I would imagine that's the average, right? So $120 check every single time somebody walks through the door. When I say check, for people who don't understand because they don't work in restaurants or haven't worked in restaurants, that's just the average order value, how much money each person spends that comes to the restaurant, check. And so that check is $120. They're going to walk in the door. Maybe there's a security guard at the front door, maybe not. Most of the time, you just walk right in. Mm-hmm. You walk to the section, you look around, you try to find your thing, you grab a pair of pants. Maybe somebody's on the floor that walks over to you and says, hey, like, can I help you? You looking for anything particular? Oh no, I'm just browsing. You take a pair of your pants, you go to the fitting room, you try on your pants. Maybe somebody says, oh, those look really good on you. Those look really good on you. You should, those are primo. Mm-hmm. Let me grab you one more thing to, see if that'll match with that. You say maybe not, maybe not.
Right.
So the experience is you walk in the door, maybe there's a security person at the door, or maybe there's somebody there to greet you, but 90% of the time there's not. You grab your pants. Chances are somebody will touch you along that journey of exploring the store. And then you bring it over to the cashier, you ring out, and you're out the door. So you now have interacted with 1 to maybe 3 people max, right? Mm-hmm. $120 check in a restaurant. Somebody walks in the restaurant, full service restaurant, $120 check. There's a host, always at night, right? That host is going to greet you. That host is going to most likely, if your table is not ready, send you over to the bar to go grab a drink. There's typically 3 people behind the bar. That's 4 people right out the gate, right? Mm-hmm. Host, 3 bartenders, and a bar back, so maybe 5 people. Then you grab your drink, you get walked over to your table, you sit down at the table, busboy rolls over, pours water for everybody, 6 people. Server comes over to your table, talks to you about the menu, 7 people. You order your food, server walks over to the POS, puts in your order, that gets spat out to the kitchen, 7 people, 13 people that are interacting with this $120 check. You eat your food, busboy grabs your dishes, puts them into a bus station. Somebody then brings that bus tub down to the dish pit. 4 people downstairs. 17 people. There's a manager in the back. There's a manager in the front. 19 people. 19 people have to be involved in that $120 check, whereas in a retail apparel store, 1 to 3 max. That's why the restaurant business is so fucking difficult.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
It's
why
hard.
it's so hard to make money in the restaurant business. You know, when I tell people, I had 13 restaurants at one point in New York. There's 700 employees.
Right.
That's a lot of employees.
Right.
But what they don't understand is that one restaurant typically requires 30 to 50 people depending on the size. And if it's a huge restaurant, there's 150 people working there.
100%. And even that's not enough, you know? Because then you got the call outs and people on vacation, or some people just aren't that good. You know, I mean, it's always something, man. I mean, when we had our spot out in Brooklyn, this was before investors, and it was me and my wife. And I'm talking after you paid rent and property tax and quarterly tax, you know, and labor, you know, and all that shit, man. Like, you barely had enough to go to Jetro on your own, because you definitely couldn't afford fucking Baldor. You know what I mean? You were taking your car with your gas money to Baldor off of your sweat
To Jetro.
to fucking Jetro, loading shit on a fucking cart in the summertime, or even worse, in the wintertime when the parking lot's filled with snow. So here you go with this fucking cart through the snow to your car, back to your spot to unload it. Maybe you got a dishwasher to help you, you know? And then you start prepping. You know, it's
a tough game, man. It's a tough
game, bro.
But there's
It's
nothing
tough.
better. There's nothing better. There's no better feeling that I can recall than getting through a hectic night and sitting down with the team, if the team is aligned, and high-fiving, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a real feeling, man. It's a real feeling.
It's real. It's real. I mean, there's the trauma bond that keeps you close and together, you know. And then there's that real authentic. Like I said, there's probably about 12 people that I'm still in touch with, you know. And I'm sure back in the day, like, we would be on the fucking line. If I'm working fish and you're working meat, I'm already battling you to see which specials are going to sell more. After that, then we're going to the bar. After that, we're going either to your place or my place, getting high as shit, playing PlayStation till 4 o'clock in the morning. But cookbooks are everywhere, you know. So in between fucking, you know, games, I'm reading Charlie Trotter's brand new shit, you know, and being inspired and ready for the next day.
I remember I worked in this restaurant. I would get sent out to the Hamptons in the summertime to go work at these restaurants out there. Mm-hmm. And I was working in this restaurant in the summer, and, you know, it's late night out there. So these, you know, sometimes they convert into like a little nightclub, whatever. But we would get out of work at 4. It was late night joints. And there's this, and he's still a very good buddy of mine, this dude Damon. And one of the craziest dudes you've ever met in your life. Just, you meet some of the most interesting, wild people in the world of restaurants, right?
For sure.
And we would get done with work, and he was a fisherman.
Oh, wow.
So, and we were out in Long Island, right on the water.
Yeah.
And so we would get done with work, throw back a bunch of booze, and we would go fishing at the Shinnecock Canal. I'll never forget it. We would go fishing for bluefish and striped bass and porgy from like 5:30 in the morning until 10 a.m.
Wow.
And you know we were not up to anything good.
Of course not.
You know what I'm saying? But like those, you know, like, you know, take that fish back.
Right.
You know, there's a piece of me that will never ever not want to be in the world of restaurants at some level, you know. And now I live in upstate New York, and I know I can bring flavor up there. You know, there's a lot of people like me who have moved up there in the pandemic because it's a lot less expensive to live there with a lot more space.
Yep.
And now it's way more expensive because of the pandemic. So a lot of wealthy people have moved up there, but there's just nothing up there that has anything like what I'm used to in the world of restaurants.
I mean, people like us, we can easily work that room, like you were talking about, from the hood to the White House. I just think because no matter what scenario that we're in, we don't really necessarily need to code switch or change up for whoever it is. We bring our genuine selves to the table, and because we're giving people, we're also giving of our spirit, of our experience, of our words, our wisdom, you know. And I think that, you know, like, although I always say that cooking is a young man's game, you know, because you got to have that stamina, you know, not only to be on the line, to work all those hours, all the lifting, you know, the ice buckets, the fucking changing of the fish, you know, hauling out the fucking trash cans, staying up to 4 o'clock in the morning and still with the strength to go fishing and still be at work by noon the next day, you know, like all of that. But now, like now I'm making my first film. You know, it's called What's Left, and we start shooting next month. And I got a team of people that were doing it, but it's a series of short films that revolve around the human condition of people that work in the kitchen. It takes place in restaurants, but it doesn't have anything to do with chefs. It doesn't have anything to do with food. It doesn't have anything to do with a chef's point of view. You know, it's about the everyday life of your fisherman friend, of your boy Sonny. You know, like the shit that he does that pulls at his heartstrings, the stuff that he does when no one's looking. You know what I mean? Because there's a million stories that are like that, of your porter, of your server, of the girl who's pregnant and working because she has to, who's sending money back home to her home country. You know, like all these stories, but all the while, all of us proudly holding that restaurant up, because that's what we do, you know? So I have 3 films, 1 in the process of being done, 2 more waiting in the wings. So once that's out, maybe I'll have you come to one of the things. We're going to be shooting October 22nd to the 27th.
I love it, man. I'd love.
Yeah.
I mean, when I really think back on it, even though there was some years there that were really, really hard, both sober and in active addiction for me, probably more hard times sober, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. I was born to be in a restaurant. You know,
sure.
I was born to be in a restaurant.
For sure.
It's I brought so much of the world of restaurants and the thought process and the ethos and the energy to this business. You know, people think I'm crazy, but
you might be.
I'm crazy, but I spend a lot of my time calling customers that buy our products, and people are like, "What do you what do you mean you call?"
Right.
I'm like, I open up the computer, I look at my orders, I read their phone number, I pick up the phone,
push some buttons,
and I say, "Hey, this is Mike, the owner of the company. I just want to introduce myself to you and thank you."
Right.
And had I not been working in restaurants for most of my life, I would never think that would be an asset. But by the way, those customers that I call are there for life. Mm-hmm. They are there now. Not only do they love the product,
right,
but they know that there's a person behind it that cares.
Right.
And that's what we do in the world of restaurants. And it's just that simple.
We're giving people. We are giving people. I mean, that is what we do. Like it's there are so many lessons around what we do on a day-to-day basis that have nothing to do with food. You know, because we do it all.
Chef Chris Scott, man, this was awesome, dude. I loved this conversation, and it is inspiring me to get more restaurant people on the podcast because I think it's fascinating for people to hear these stories. I think people obviously love the restaurants. There's also a real sort of fascination with this, the mysterious component of them of being the hardest business in the world. And there's a lot of warriors that have worked in the industry for so long, like you and I, that have a lot of great stories to tell.
For sure.
And people love them. How can the audience follow along your journey?
Instagram, Chef Chris 512. I'm constantly, if you're on there, then you can kind of track everything that I'm doing, from pop-ups to the movie that I'm doing, getting ready to write my second cookbook called The B-Sides, to where the premise of that is finding inspiration even through the shit that we're going through. You know, still finding inspiration to put something beautiful on the plate, even when we're struggling.
Ladies and gents, I loved that conversation. I could literally sit here and talk to Chef for, I'm sure, hours and hours on end, and we probably
for the rest
wouldn't.
of the night.
We wouldn't have.
We'll get some takeout.
Yeah, we just wouldn't have. We wouldn't have a need to stop. So that's always a good sign that the energy is right. Look, the world of restaurants is very special, especially in a city like New York, Philadelphia, where food is consumed at an alarming rate, and everybody is a critic. And like I said, you know, environments where it's hot as hell, weapons everywhere, lots of personalities, and things need to be in order for things to be successful, it needs to move in unison, in harmony, like a symphony. And I'm so lucky to have experienced a lot of that over my years in the business, and I'm sure Chef has too. You know, one thing that I'll leave you with, cooking for me these days is way simpler than it was in my days of restaurants. I use really great ingredients with good olive oil and salt. That is all you need, friends. Really great protein, really great seasonal fresh vegetables, and really awesome olive oil. For me, it is either Spanish or Greek olive oil. Those are my two favorite regions for olive oil, and awesome salt. And that's all you need to make a delicious meal to put a smile on everybody's face. I promise you, that's it. That's really all you need. And if you're a pepper person, maybe a little bit of pepper, but I like olive oil and salt. I love the world of restaurants. I really loved sitting down with Chef Chris Scott here and just jamming about the world of restaurants. And I'm sure it was a really compelling and interesting conversation for you guys to listen to as well. So I'm going to ask you to pay a little rent here. All I'm going to ask you to do is share the podcast. Share it. Put it on your social media. Follow Chef Chris Scott. Tell your friends about this episode. Send it to a friend. Send it to your family. It really means a lot when you share the episodes. And if you're feeling super generous, I always say 5-star rating and a review would be very, very, very much appreciated. I love doing the podcast. I love doing the podcast. It really, really, it fills my cup, and I think you listening to the podcast fills yours as well. I hope you're having an amazing day or night, whatever time it is you're listening to this thing. And until the next one, y'all, peace.